distinguished panelists, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon and konnichiwa. Welcome to the joint webinar of Center for Diplomacy and Development and Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement on Nepal-Japan relations, past, present, and future. To speak on today's interesting topic, we have very excellent panel today. Before we start, let me announce few housekeeping rules. One, all our speakers are made co-host, which means you can unmute yourself. You can also record the talk if you want, and you can unmute yourself whenever you wish to speak. Second is each speaker will have 20 minutes. Please try to be within the time so that we can have more time for interaction, and then you can get more answer to respond, more question to respond. Third is all our participants will be in mute mode. They cannot speak to us. Hence, they will have to type the question in the chat box or in Facebook comment box. Please keep your question very short so that because we'll give more preference to short and sharp questions. To start the program, may I now invite Mr. Mitra Bandhu Paudil, Vice President of CDD and Principal of Little Angels College of Management, to deliver welcome remarks. Mitra, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Pramoji. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone watching us from home and abroad. First of all, I would like to welcome and acknowledge the presence of our panelists today. Ambassador Mohan Krishna Shrestha, Founder President CDD and former Nepali Ambassador to France. Ambassador Mitsuaki Kojima, President Japan Nepal Society and former Japanese Ambassador to Nepal. Yukimo Asakuma, Chief Representative JICA Nepal Office. Dr. Balaram Shrestha, International Lawyer Tokyo. Welcome you all for joining this webinar as panelists today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this joint webinar of CDD and NICE. CDD is a non-profit, non-political, and non-partisan social organization registered with the government agency. It was established in February 2018 as a think tank institution on the track to diplomacy with an objective to work in the field of diplomacy and development issues. Our team comprises of diverse backgrounds, that is diplomacy, education, journalism, law, management, public service, tourism, etc. All our promoters have joined hands to create a positive energy suitable for our society and the country. In fact, we all have a keen desire to contribute to society and the country. Mr. Mohan Krishna Shrestha, former Nepali Ambassador to France, is the founder president of CDD. Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement is an independent, apolitical, and non-partisan think tank which believes in democracy and a world free from conflict. We envision a world where sources of insecurity are identified and understood, conflicts are prevented or resolved, and peace is advocated. We are discussing on Nepal-Japan relations, past, present, and future in today's webinar. Formal diplomatic relations between Nepal and Japan established in 1st September 1965. 2 years that followed, Japan established its embassy in Kathmandu. 66 years prior to our diplomatic relations, Japanese Buddhist monk Ikai Kawaguchi visited Nepal and promoted Lumbini, the birthplace of Lord Buddha, to Japanese people. Culture seemed to be the significant part to make our relations stronger. When we talk about our relations, Nepal has acknowledged the assistance from Japan in various projects. Tano hydropower project is one of the example of ongoing projects. ODA loan project of 15,137 million N that has been focusing on package 2, which includes waterway, powerhouse, and related equipment. Similarly, 2.69 kilometer of Nagdunga tunnel construction project that aim to be completed in 2022 is another major project in Nepal being built with Japanese loan assistance of 16.636 billion N. School sector development program with the grant assistance of 308 million rupees for the third term of SSDP is JICA's ongoing project. Similarly, reconstruction of Bir Hospital and Paropakar Maternity Hospital with the concept of build back better to cope with future disasters, projects for improvement of water supply in Pokhara, and project on capacity development for the implementation of Economic Census 2018 are other remarkable ongoing projects in Nepal. I'm sure the Chief Representative JICA Nepal office will highlight on these issues. In this context, grant aid, ODA loan, and technical cooperation are the major contribution from JICA, Japan, let's say, especially for various developmental initiatives in Nepal. People-to-people relation, in my opinion, play a vital role to strengthen our bilateral relations. So I recommend literature, arts, and exchange of knowledge capital to be prioritized in Nepal-Japan relations in future. We are excited to listen our distinguished panelists. We have, excuse me, extensive knowledge and experience in today's topic. So without further ado, let me conclude by saying 3 lines in Japanese. Otashi tachi no nyujo, Fujisan mitai ni oki, hukai umi mitai ni. Meaning, let's our friendship be as high as the mountain and as deep as the ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Podel. The first speaker for today is Ambassador Mitsuaki Kojima, a president of Japan Nepal Society and former Japanese ambassador to Nepal. Ambassador Mitsuaki Kojima is a distinguished Japanese policy analyst on global and domestic issues. He has served as the ambassador of Japan to Nepal and ambassador to Luxembourg and held important posts in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, such as Deputy Director of Disarmament Division, Director of Research Division, and South American Division, respectively, and also Managing Director of Planning Department, Japan International Cooperation Agency. He obtained a master's degree in economics from Keio University, as well as master in political science from Yale University. Kojima was accorded the Grand-Croix de Order de Merite in Luxembourg in March 2006. Currently, he works as president of Nepal-Japan Society and lives in Tokyo. And Mr. Kojima, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Ambassador Mohan Shrestha, distinguished panelists, viewers, namaskar. It is my great pleasure to take part in this seminar through internet. And first of all, I would like to congratulate Ambassador Mohan Shrestha for his new post as president of the Center for Diplomacy and Development. I wish Ambassador Shrestha all the best, all the success in his new post. Now, I should start with my challenging mission in Nepal as an ambassador. It was a really indeed challenging mission as ambassador to Nepal from July 1999 to November 2001. Particularly so because that was my first ambassadorial post, and I was much younger and active. I was so impressed by the Himalaya mountains with frozen white snow on top. Also enjoy the old Hindu temples, which somewhat resembles wooden structures of Japanese temples, and also ancient cities like Patan and Bhaktapur. Such ancient cities exist side by side with local people's daily life, which is like ancient city of Kyoto in Japan. Now, without spending too much time for this, I'd like to begin with my major mission at the time. That is very many folds. I don't like to elaborate, but such as exchange of information and policy dialogue with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other ministries if necessary, as Ambassador Mohan Shrestha knows very well, and promote bilateral relations at all levels, including people-to-people relations and parliamentary exchanges. And in particular, economic and technical assistance. I was engaged in many projects for Nepal, and looking back, I spent much time on this subject. Also important is providing information and guidance to Japanese nationals in Nepal. Actually, I have so many memories about development project in Nepal, such as Sinduri Road project, water supply, and so on and so forth. But if I start telling that, I could spend more than 1 hour. So let me turn to the next aspect. That is major changes relevant to Japan-Nepal relations. There have been noticeable changes relevant to bilateral relations since I left there. First is the new government under the new constitution in Nepal. It started in February 2018. We welcome it. The new constitution is very democratic under the international standards. Nepali people should be proud of the new constitution and the peaceful transition of government. Turning our eyes to the rest of the world, there are still so many armed conflicts and civil wars in many parts of the world. In their attempt to change the government and establish democracy, Nepal could be a good example in the peaceful process, especially since 2006. Secondly, in such major changes, share of remittance from abroad in GDP in Nepal is very high. In recent years, as you know, the number of Nepali residents abroad reached to 4 billion level, and 26.5% of GDP in Nepal represent the remittance from abroad in 2019. This helps their families in Nepal at a time when Nepal faced difficulties, including the mega earthquake in 2015. At the same time, it reflects a lack of income opportunities in Nepal. Thirdly, big increase in the number of Nepali people living in Japan. The number of Nepali residents in Japan also increased especially since 2010. Nepali residents in Japan in early 1990s was less than 300, but now 100,000 Nepalese living in Japan. It's a big community in Japan now. On the part of Japan, Japanese residents in Nepal were 1,000 or so in the past, and now about 12,000 or so. The picture has changed remarkably. Japan accommodates a big Nepali community now, which is the 6th largest among entire foreign residents in Japan. Fourthly, the Japanese economy entered a low growth rate phase since 2008. After the worldwide financial crisis in 2008, widely known as the Lehman shock, Japan also overcome the economic setback, entered a low growth rate phase, even with constant economic stimulus measures by the government. Another factor affecting the activities in the world now is unfortunately Wuhan originated coronavirus epidemic. Until successful development of vaccine and medicine, it continues to affect adversely the economic and social activities in every country, including Japan and Nepal. Those are the major changes relevant to our relations since then. Now, let me turn to global issues and challenges to the status quo in the world. Firstly, most imminent issue is a deteriorating global climate due to the global warming. Some scholars may say that Earth is entering an ice age on the contrary, but we should not overlook the fact that much glaciers are melting gradually in the Himalayas and other parts of the world. The ice sea in the Arctic Sea is melting, and the ice field there is getting smaller and smaller. And the global warming makes the climate rough and sharp and abrupt, resulting in sudden and strong rainfall, flood, and drought. That is a visible fact. Nepal has the Himalayas. That is called the roof of the world. I think more attention, international attention is necessary on the effect of the global warming to the Himalaya range. And maybe this is the area Nepal, Japan could make joint study. Secondly, in the global issues is somewhat tense and unstable security situation in the Far East and East Asia. Very fast, massive military buildup by China since early 1990s, and its expansion of military activities in the East and the South China Sea, along with the One Belt, One Road strategy. And also North Korea's development and deployment of nuclear weapons and missiles, in particular, are getting a real threat in this area. Such a tendency will accelerate a competitive military buildup among nations. It may lead to some military confrontation. Thirdly, on the aspect of global issues, a need to administer or restrict degree of globalizations. The coronavirus pandemic is one example. I don't have to elaborate. And also, already many countries take strict measures to check the inflow of people in the face of the increase in international terrorism and the refugees. In trade and internet use as well, the United States is uneasy about the practices of China. China argues that it is against the free trade, and it is protection, and it is against the free expression of internet use. But is it fair to say that China has a free hand in trade and internet use outside China, while China continues to restrict free trade and the free expression within its own territories, including maybe Hong Kong? Globalization is a good thing in principle, but 75 years after the end of World War II and the establishment of the United Nations, it may be the time to examine international practices or respective regime adopted since then. And these global issues will more or less affect our economy, security, and social life for every country, including our bilateral relations. We require wisdom to solve them. Now, let me touch on briefly our bilateral relations in the 21st century. Bearing in mind the major changes relevant to Nepal-Japan relations and the global issues I mentioned earlier, I should like to point out some important aspects which may be a guide to our bilateral relations in the future. First of all, for Nepal, a need to create much more income-generating jobs. In the past, one of the important areas we put emphasis in our bilateral relations has been economic and social development in Nepal, to which Japan provides economic and technical assistance, ODA. I believe still there is a need for that. But in parallel with such efforts, we should put more emphasis on creation of income-generating jobs and businesses in Nepal. Here, I would like to cite 3 sets of figures about Nepal's economy. The first, the share of income in agriculture and forestry represents 31% in Nepal, while 64% or more of the working population is engaged in this sector. This means that productivity or income generation ability is very low in agriculture and the forestry sector, so that there's a lot of room to increase income in that sector. Secondly, share of the manufacturing sector represents only 5.5%. Thirdly, the share of remittance from abroad in GDP in Nepal is 26.5%, as I already mentioned. The figure suggests that the more attractive jobs are needed in Nepal so that more Nepali people can find jobs in Nepal. Therefore, it is necessary to increase income generation ability in the agricultural sector. In agriculture, we should put more emphasis on a downstream, that is quality control and marketing of agricultural products. It is necessary to promote more agribusiness in Nepal. Agribusiness accommodates a wide variety of businesses, ranging from equipment production, quality control, packing, transportation, marketing activities, and so on. And such achievement in the downstream will decide what to do with production, that is upstream. Nepal has a comparative advantage in agriculture compared to India and other hot and dry countries, because Nepal enjoys milder climate and ample water resources. I believe that doubling income in agriculture sector could be a desirable and also attainable goal. Also, it is necessary to promote small and medium-sized manufacturing sector. for this, agribusiness is a promising one in Nepal. And maybe IT-related business is another sector Nepal can promote because heavy transportation costs do not involve in IT sector. Now, I would like to conclude my presentation by touching on a shift to closer partnership at the regional level from a donor-recipient relationship in our bilateral relations. Having said all this today, I expect that while the bilateral relations between Japan and Nepal will be further promoted during the 21st century, the relationship between the two countries is entering new phase. That is a close partnership at the regional level, shifting from the donor-recipient relationship. Culturally as well, many Japanese feel familiar with Nepal, where they come to know that the Lord Buddha was born in Lumbini, Nepal, and raised at Kapilavastu in Nepal. People may be able to feel and reflect Buddha's basic thinking, such as human equality, importance of life, peace, including no killing, no violence, and human welfare. We could be a closer partner at regional level in the 21st century. Now, I stop my presentation here and leave the rest to QR session. Thank you very much. Zanzibar.
Ambassador Mitsuaki Kojima, thank you very much for your interesting presentation. The next speaker is Dr. Balram Shrestha. Dr. Balram Shrestha is a registered foreign attorney in Japan. He possesses extensive knowledge in the corporate law as well as international law. He holds bachelor's and master from Faculty of Law from Tribhuvan University, Nepal, and PhD from Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology. He holds professional experience in law for more than 25 years in Nepal and 17 years in Japan. He offers consultation and legal service to industry sector, including domestic and international corporate customers and companies, banks, security companies, foreign investment companies, hospitals, and airlines. Dr. Shrestha is Associate Lecturer at the Ibaraki University of Japan and researcher of NPO AGRI. He is also a multilingualist and a frequent international traveler. He is associated with many social organizations where he renders service in different high-level capacities. Dr. Shrestha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Jaiswal, and former Ambassador Mr. Kojima, and former Ambassador Mohan Krishna Shrestha, and Nepal JICA Chief Ms. Yumiko Asakura-san, and all participants. Thank you for giving me a chance to have my brief presentation about the FDA and FDI and trade and commerce in between the Nepal and Japan. Being as international attorney and practicing within Japan and Nepal, I have I'm working on this field for more than 17 years in Japan and in totally 25 years now. After the restoration of democracy in Nepal had in that time launched a liberal economic policy after restoration of democracy in 1990. Nepal is until the 1990, there is no such kind of open economic policy, and there is no any kind of special FDI from the overseas. But after 90, Nepal is open to the all over the world, and the economy is also the very liberal. And from 1990 to 2016, more than 87 countries is investing in Nepal, and they are and getting the Nepal FDI from the more than 87 countries. Till now, more than 36,000 companies is established in Nepal, and more and large amount is investing in Nepal. The big stakeholder around the world is in now still the India is a number one, and China is going to number two, and number three is UK, and after then the Japan. Japan is not only the investor partnership, but Japan is also the cooperate to Nepal's agriculture, cooperate to Nepal infrastructure, and so many fields. In this context and in this regard, Japan is a number one donor company also to Nepal, which also helped and cooperate to Nepal to make the country good infrastructure and agriculture innovation also. That's why we're getting the so many assistance from Japan, and all of the Nepalese people and the Nepal government also very gratitude towards the Japanese government and the Japanese people also, because we Nepal and Japan is very close from the perspective of the religion of the Buddhist and the type of the human being. Because when I came to Japan in the first, I feel that very secure and feel all the Japanese looks like the Nepali. Those people who are being in Japan, they have the good relation with the Japanese people, and those people who are living in the Nepal, they have very good relation with the Nepali people. There is no any conflict in between Nepalese people and Japanese people till now in the context of any political issues and economic issues. Only they have the good relation, and they have the very friendly relation, and they have very deep relationship about the development and infrastructure and the social economic perspective. For this, we are expecting the very good relation, and also want to more explore about the relationship with the Japan, not only the cooperation, not only as a donor, but also the business partner. And also, as you know, the Japan is a very innovative country. They are focusing to the new high technologies, and they are focusing to the research and development of the new robots and AI, so many things in the world. And most of the new innovation and technologies is invented from Japan, and that exploring to the all over the world, not only the Asia, but also the Europe and America. They like the Japanese technology and know-how and new innovation items. That's why Nepal also not only become a partner of the donor country, but also Nepal wants to get the partnership with the new technology from Japan. And Nepal have a very young workforce power, because we have the very young workforce power in Nepal, and they're very eager to know the technology of Japan. And then, as you know, the Nepal is a very good country in between India and China. And from the 6 hour, in between in the area of 6 hours by plane, Nepal is situated in the India and China, and it can access more than half population of the world by plane through 6 hours. So if we have got the such kind of the technology from Japan, if we have make a good partnership with Japan, Japan also able to explore their new technology to the big population. Because Nepalese people are very intelligent, and they are very honest towards the work. When I came to Japan and know about the Japanese people and get their comments that who are working in the Japan, all Japanese are said to me that Nepalese people are very honest because of their work, and heart is very clear and their eye is very clear. That seems that Nepalese are very honest and intelligent. That's why Nepalese people who are migrant, they are going about more than 60 countries to work, and all the countries want Nepalese people to work their country. That's why from now, just before Mr. Kojima, former Ambassador Kojima said that more than 26% of the GDP is come from remittance. But because of the this remittance, now Nepalese people are expensing their all the home budgets. But Nepali people wants to stop the these immigrants from their one country and make their one brand, such as the make their one brand in the Nepal, but they don't have the good technology and the good know-how and the good skillful workforce. That's why from Japan we can we want the good technology, such as the making the manufacturing the many new innovation technologies and innovative agriculture items. As you know, Nepal is still running the very traditional agriculture thing, agriculture goods, and the system is all agriculture and very traditional. That's why if we change it in the innovative and new technology, then we can product good things to the India and China, which have too many population in between us. That's why we need to make co-partnership with the Japan to work on this production of new technology from the IT and AE. And the global, we have only the from the statistics of the Nepal government, only less than 1% only less than 1% FDI is getting Nepal from overseas. It means that if we compare for the neighboring country, more FDI is getting from the overseas. If we compare with the this FDI, America, United States is a #1 country who is getting the FDI from the world. United States is getting more than 251 billion US dollar in 2019, but in 2018 more than that, because in 2018 United States getting 254 billion US dollar as a FDI. The FDI is come from the investor of the America is from Japan, German, and Netherlands. This three stakeholder is investing very big amount in America, and it comes #2 is China, and China also the getting 140 million US dollar every year from the overseas to invest in that country. And number 3 is Singapore, and number 4 is Brazil, and likewise the number 8 is India, who is also getting 52 billion US dollar from overseas. And like this, the India is getting the number 8, but in context of the India and China, Nepal is very small country, and we don't need such kind of big volume of FDA. Only if we can get the more than 10% of 10% FDA from the overseas, then the Nepal's economic problem will be solved very fastly. That's why Nepal wants the FDI more from overseas, and especially the regional superpower Japan, which is the very closest country to Nepal. In the context of this FDI, when we compare with other countries, Japan also having a FDI from the overseas. Japan is getting over FDI from 145 billion from in 2019. The country is very big FDI getting from so many countries, but in compare of the investing and the FDI, Japan is known as a investor country in the world. Japan investing so many countries like in Japan, America, Europe, North America, Korea, United States. Japan, more than 85% of the FDA of America is investing from Japan. That's why Japan have a such kind of the economic power. That's why if there is a turbulence of the economic incident, even in America, United Kingdom, and other Europe, Japan also affected, and the economic is down in that time. That's why Japan is not renowned, not very famous in the getting FDI, but famous in investing the money to outside of the country. Japan is investing mostly in electronic machines, finance, insurance, chemical, pharmaceutical, transportation, equipment, and production of real estates. That's why what I am thinking is Nepal is a very raw country. Well, we are not, even though making our industrial revolution now because of the new instrument of new technologies. That's why Japan become a part of Nepal's one partner in context of this technology supporter or the technology investor. That's why now the Nepalese students who are very talented in the IT sector and the mathematics sector, they are immigrating, going to America and US, Europe for working. But Nepal government wants to stop them and make them work new technology to manufacture from their one country. That's why if Japan able to invest in our IT sector, invest to our IE, and invest to our innovative agriculture sector, and also to invest to invest to how to protect corruption from Nepal, and how to make very smooth, speedy working bureaucrats. For that know-how, if Japan can able to become a partner of that field, then Nepal will be a very good partner in the South Asia for Japan to become to make a good technology in the very chief from the very chief point of view, and make them sell to the huge countries Japan, India and China. such kind of the need we need from the Japan, and Nepal is now the searching such kind of a partner in the global statistics. In the context of the FDI, uh, Nepal is very eager to get the FDI, but want to also develop in their own business industrial sector also. From the Nepal's point of view, Nepal is now very eager to make a partner with the to develop tourism and new innovative agriculture and hydropower and IT and also the AE. But from the research, we cannot find any kind of very reliable partners, because in Asia, there is only one country who have a very good, skillful workforce and innovative technology production country, superpower country is Japan. There is no such kind of a very good country. That's why in the context of also distance, from the last March 2020, Nepal started the direct flight from Narita, and now it's very easy to access within the 6.5 hours to Nepal, and also Nepal can also access to Japan. That's why my team, we have the team in Japan also to work on the on this bilateral economic development, such as Nepal Chamber of Commerce. Japan Nepal Chamber of Commerce is also working to boost Japan and Nepal's economy, and they collaborate to help their economy each other, and how to boost their companies in these two countries. That's why we are also helping the Japanese country, Japanese companies to go to Nepal and make the partnership with the Nepali company and make the good development in Nepalese needs, and also helping the Nepalese company to come to Japan and study know-how about the Japanese companies know-how. That's why Nepal is also the one very good partner in context of this FDI and trade and commerce. But what I think is Japan and Nepal should be a good partner after the Nepalese workforces become very qualified from the Japanese system, because we have the good, big and very young workforces, but they are not qualified, because in Nepal we don't have the vocational schools, vocational colleges. That's why we have only very more percentage in the theoretical colleges, which makes our work forces not qualified. That's why Nepalese people and Nepalese laborers are bound to go in the very low low labor cost to work to the other countries. That's why if we make to connect with the Japan through the this perspective, then Nepal can get the very high chances to promote FDI, more FDI, and Japan also get benefited from the indirect sides. That's why I have the one proposal in the brief that Nepal is not still not still started that one. After living in 17 years in Japan, I had my one experience that Japan government is Japan government had a good system on the social security. They have the towards the people. The social security tools is they have the four tools. One is they are focusing the education, and they have the compulsory education till 15 years, and that is very compulsory and freely to the people. And then they have also second tool is the health insurance. They have very good health insurance to the people. And third is they have their third tool is the employment security. The government themselves have a system to make people and search people their work. No need the people there is no any hard times to find the job in Japan, because government have the such kind of a system to find the job to people. And third one is the after retirement of the people, they have the social insurance. It means the pension system, very good pension systems. These four tools makes the Japanese people very honest towards the government, and government is very honest to work with the people. That's why in Nepal also, if we make our Nepalese people also this kind of social security through our education, through our system, and then make them very qualified, then that makes the more promotion and more development in the FDI and the other development of the economy. That's why what I am going to say is the social system and the other social security system of Japanese system is also very good learning and teachings to the Nepali people. That makes Nepal's education, and that makes Nepal economy, and that makes Nepal social economic development very good, but not yet know in detail about the system in Nepal. That's why if the Japanese government also it will be very good to become a partner to support such kind of system to Nepal and other developing country, because most of the developing countries, they have the big work forces, but they are not qualified. They have big population, but there is no the system to monitoring their living standards. That's why the FDI and this trade is the only the economic tools which makes people very happy and good living standard. And that's why we need to know so many Japanese such kind of the tools to Nepal. That's why in the context of the FDI, Nepal can follow the Japanese technology, and that makes Nepalese people more skillful, more innovative, and more revolutionary production items from the Nepal. That's why from the JICA side and the government of the Japan, we need your cooperation, but we need also the system of the Japanese social cultural things. Last 5 years before, when the Nepalese civil code was launched, we include so many items from Japanese law. That's why the Japanese law is very, what to say, the modernized law. That's why our Nepal is now launching the civil code of new civil code from last 1.5 years, and that makes Nepal little bit Nepalese people secure from the so many perspective. Such kind of thing, like in Nepal, we also want to exchange the how to protect corruption from our government, how to protect the this delay thing of the government policies, and how to execute the short-term projects and long-term planning. Such kind of thing we need to know. That's why I humbly request to all the sectors of the Japan, let's work not only for the cooperation, but also the many systems which we can need to get from Japan and make them explode to the other countries. Thank you for my this brief presentation. And if any questions, then I will come back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shrestha. May I now request Ms. Yumiko Asakuma. Ms. Yumiko Asakuma is Chief Representative of Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA Nepal office. Prior to this assignment, Ms. Asakuma was working as Director General in Yokohama Center, JICA. She began her career in JICA in 1993 in the Social Development, Cooperation Development, and diversified her work experience in various departments of JICA office, which include Industrial and Mining Development Study, Grant Aid Cooperation, Training Group, and representative of JICA India office. She also served as a Chief Representative of JICA in Bhutan office from December 2012 to March 2016. Ms. Asakuma is a graduate from Osaka Prefectural University in Department of Integrated Arts and Science. Ms. Yumiko Asakuma, the floor is yours.
So thank you, moderator, Mr. Jaiswal, and the chairman of Mr. Powder, and His Excellency Mr. Mitsuaki Kojima, and His Excellency Mr. Mohan Krishna Shrestha, and Dr. Balaram Shrestha, and all participants. Namaskar, very good afternoon, and or very good evening, or very good morning. Konnichiwa, konbanwa, ohayo gozaimasu. So today's topic is the Nepal-Japan relations, past, present, and future. And I would like to say thank you very much to invite me as one of the panelists here today. If I talk about how much amount of our JICA projects for these years and something, so I'm afraid it should be a bit boring. So I will focus on the background and philosophy of our cooperation, including a few personal experiences. Firstly, JICA's cooperation in the past. Japanese official assistance to Nepal started in 1969. So it was 51 years ago. Please imagine you are now in Japan in 1969. World War II ended in August 1945, and in 1960s, Japan was a still developing country. I myself remember it. I lived in Osaka City when I was a small kid. Our living condition was very poor. I still remember the road pavement work was going near my house in Osaka, and my mother said to me, the road would be better and we wouldn't need to worry when it rains. So it means it had not been paved before that. And a river near my house was heavily polluted, dirty, and smelled. Some families, including my family, used a pit toilet, not flush one. So it was 1960s of Japan. Maybe many of you know Japan's blue train, Shinkansen. So it was constructed in 1964, supported by World Bank. It means Japan was a recipient country at that time. And around the same time, Japan started our cooperation to Nepal in 1969. So Japan is the first Asian country which became a developed country from a developing country. So I'm sure the experiences as a developing country in the past is one of the great advantages of Japanese cooperation to development country today. I would like to show a few examples of past Japanese cooperation in Nepal. One good example was the Japan University Teaching Hospital, supported by grant assistance and technical cooperation. The hospital is now working for COVID-19 testing and treatment. The facility was built in 1983, after more than 30 years, it shook heavily by the earthquake in 2015. However, it was not damaged. After only 2 hours from the earthquake, TUTH started to treat injured persons thanks to the strong building structure. And other good example is the BP Highway Shingri Road construction, as His Excellency Mr. Kojima mentioned. Shingri Road project is one of the most famous cooperation projects of JICA. I also knew the project even before I came to Nepal. It was one of the biggest and most successful grant assistance cooperation of Japan in the whole world. So I'm very proud of it. Also, a part of the road was damaged by the earthquake, but there were no casualties and the road could be used. The damage rehabilitation is now ongoing by the Japanese corporation. The keyword of this cooperation in Japanese quality. Both Nepal and Japan have suffered from earthquake. We continue to ensure essential quality of our cooperation in present and future. More important for successful cooperation is the ownership of the recipient government and recipient people. All of our cooperation projects are funded by the Japanese government, originally taxes from the people of Japan. So I would like to express that strong commitment by the government and recipients in implementation and maintenance is essential for the success and sustainability of the project. JICA has been carrying out not only infrastructure projects, but also technical cooperation. JICA has been conducting various sectors technical cooperation, such as education, health, agriculture, and infrastructure. Today I will pick up legal sector cooperation, which Dr. Sureshita mentioned. So I will describe briefly about the Japanese legal system. 150 years ago, Japan was dramatically shifted from Edo period, it's a kind of the samurai era, and to the Meiji modernization. And our legal system was formulated at that time by reference to some countries' legal system, Germany, France, and Britain. So not copy from one country. Japan mixed our traditional values to our legal system as well. So if somebody would like to learn the Japanese legal system, they have to know the German, France, Britain, and the Japanese context. So it is said that it's quite difficult for foreigners. So this kind of our experience is very well fixed for Nepali now, new democratic context. Not copy one country's and mixed traditional values. So we support Nepal to create new values with reference to Japanese knowledge and experience. So now I can say our legal cooperation is one of the good examples showing our philosophy. It's not just copy from Japan to Nepal. We have dispatched many experts and volunteers to Nepal. And our volunteer cooperation, JOCB, started in 1970s. Our volunteers studied Nepali in Japan as well as Nepal before start volunteer job, and they use their communication skills for working at grassroots level with local people. So this year, 2020, is the 50th years anniversary of our volunteer cooperation. Unfortunately, we have sent back our volunteers to Japan temporarily, and we cannot conduct any ceremonies or events under current situation. However, I'm very happy today that we can celebrate our 50 years volunteer cooperation through this webinar together with you. So since 2015, we have been carrying out our cooperation in reconstruction and disaster management. So it is one of the Japanese technology showing in Nepal. So before telling Japanese cooperation in disaster management, I'm telling my family's history about the earthquake. My grandfather, who was born in 1901, was a fishery grocery shop owner. He lived in a shop house, a building serving as a residence and a commercial business in Hyogo Prefecture next to Osaka. When he was only 24 years old, the earthquake magnitude 6.8 hit the area and 428 people lost their lives. My grandfather survived, so I'm here today. However, the shop houses area, mostly made by wood, was burnt by fire. Nearly 70% of downtown of the municipality burnt out, and my grandfather lost both his residence and his shop, including his personal belongings and business assets. It should be hard for a 24-year-old man, and the municipality tried to enhance victims to build partial concrete shop house, which is more resilient against earthquakes and fires, but more costly than wooden shop house. So finally, the municipality decided to use donations or subsidies to fill the difference in amount. My grandfather applied it and built new shop house. And then he could get where to live and started his business again, thanks to the relief donation. And it was a story of 95 years old. And last year, I visited the municipality and showed the building was still existing and used there. It is one of the Build Back Better stories of Japan. JICA's Reconstruction Corporation is not only recovery, but disaster risk reduction against future disasters. JICA has been supporting reconstruction of houses, schools, bridges, hospitals, and cultural heritage. All of them will not be damaged in future by the same scale earthquake. So Build Back Better is not only for disaster recovery and reconstruction. By COVID-19, both Nepal and Japan face economic and social difficulties. But both of us is currently making efforts to control the diseases and then is going to make efforts to recover from diseases together by Build Back Better. So secondly, I will move to the present cooperation. One of the significant cooperation is the Nagdonga Tunnel project, as Mr. Powder mentioned. So this is a first road tunnel project in Nepal. And the Nepal and Japan has many things in common. And one of them is the earthquake, and the other one is the mountain terrain. And so tunnel technology in construction has been developed in Japan because of its terrain. And Japanese construction company won the bidding and they started to work already. Although there are some Japanese engineers, but many engineers and workers working at the site are Nepali. It is a financial cooperation project, but are also strongly expecting the technical transfer, technology sharing between Japanese and Nepali engineers and workers to develop Nepali human resources capacity through the project. And tunnel technology in construction will develop in Nepal, a real mountain country. At present, the other important cooperation is a scholarship program. I was very surprised to hear that it was 1901, 1 year after my grandfather was born. The first Nepali students sent to Japan, and they brought back to Nepal fruits and flowers, such as persimmon and wisteria. So our scholarship program invites future leaders from Nepal to Japan and offers the opportunity to learn about Japanese modernization and development experiences, which differ from those of Europe and US. So it is our characteristic of our scholarship program. Thirdly, for the future, we are going to continue our cooperation in the area which has explained now. But we will also using assets and relationship developed in Nepal for these 51 years. And in addition to our past and present cooperation, JICA now considers the new development cooperation for Nepali workers in Japan. As Mr. Kojima, His Excellency Mr. Kojima expressed that the picture has changed rapidly. There are three expectations of this new cooperation. Number one, Nepalese who are going to Japan are well prepared in their professional and language skills before going to Japan. And number two, Nepali workers are able to work and live in Japan with Japanese people in a safe and comfortable manner. And number three, last but not least, Nepali coming back to Nepal from Japan contribute economic and or social development gained in Japan through their work, such as establish new agribusiness or IT sector and so on. This is a new challenge for JICA Nepal office. It is another opportunity, future cooperation of JICA. We will start our study for future cooperation soon. So because of the pandemic of COVID-19, many Japanese local communities facing difficulties without Nepali workers who has gone back to Nepal. We will make efforts to achieve that Japan will be selected from Nepali migrant workers soon after current situation gets better. We believe that migrant workers not only gaining benefit from their destination country, but also contribute benefit to their destination country. JICA has 15 domestic offices in Japan, and Yokohama is one of that. And I used to be a Director General of Yokohama JICA office. And it is quite unique. As a donor organization, we have a domestic office. The reason why is that Japanese experience and knowledge are not only from Tokyo, but also from all over Japan. So our domestic office relationship with local government, local enterprises, and local community are essential for our development cooperation in recipient countries. Now, our domestic offices and their local partners are ready to do something effective for migrant workers who work there. Lastly, I would like to express I'm proud of our organization named JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, not JICA, Japan Aid. Aid is a kind of things from one to another, but cooperation is a mutual relationship. It's not only from Japan to Nepal, but also from Nepal to Japan. I believe Japan also learn and gain from Nepal, and we can create new values for the new countries. It is the objective of JICA's cooperation. So I hope JICA's cooperation in past, present, and future will contribute further development of Nepal, as well as further friendship and partnership between Nepal and Japan. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Ms. Yumiko Asakuma. The next speaker for today is Mr. Mohan Krishna Sesta. Mr. Mohan Krishna Sesta comes from Nepali Diplomatic Service. He was the former Chief of Protocol of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Kathmandu. He served as the Nepalese ambassador to France and concurrently to Greece, Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. He has traveled to 71 countries. He has written a book titled 3 Decades of in Diplomacy in Nepali, and the English version was from London in April 2018. He is the founder, president, and CEO of Center for Diplomacy and Development. Mr. Sesta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Pramodji. Namaskar, good afternoon, good morning, konnichiwa, konbanwa to all our dear audience. First of all, I'd like to thank Center for Diplomacy and Development, as well as to Nepal Institute for International Cooperation Engagement for inviting me to be a panelist in this important webinar. And my respects to Ambassador Kojima, Ms. Asakuma Yumiko, and to Dr. Balaram Srestha. I'm so happy to share the panel in this seminar today. And I have listened to all your presentation and learned a lot. Actually, before starting my presentation, I would like to offer a short introduction about myself. It was in 1980 that I first traveled to Japan. It's 40 years ago. After that, also visited several times on several occasions. And I studied Japanese language at the invitation of Japanese Foreign Ministry between 1984 and 85. And because of my love for language, I'm still keeping alive and I can quite well communicate. And also I served in our embassy twice between 1986 and 1988, and thereafter in 1999 to 2003. Then I came back to my country. During my stay in Japan, I have almost traveled to 25 provinces out of 47. And due to language easiness also, it's very easy for me to live in Japan like a second home. Now, before saying something, let me share some experience about my Japan, because Japan is such a country, very homogeneous. Its people are homogeneous, its food, its culture, its music, its everything. Even the making up the city, systems, everything is almost same type. If you travel from Hokkaido in the north to the Okinawa, I have been to all these parts, almost you find same thing, not much different. Only thing is that in the modern big cities, there are modern big buildings, and in the villages, there are, of course, rural houses. But the beauty of Japan is that everybody or every household has access to all basic necessities. It might be a single house in a village. That is the beauty of Japan. And here I see today among our audience, there are many friends who have long association with Japan. And there might be many other people who have never had a chance to visit Japan. So when I thought, what should I present today, except from the foreign policy of Japan, that will be the last part. But each and every country has its long history, long geography, and Japan's history geography is very interesting. So whatever knowledge I had, that was with me. But when I have to make a presentation today, then I delve into some information, and I found there are also some very commonalities. Which commonality? People say there are commonality between Japan and Nepal. But what type of commonalities are good? I found a very interesting fact, which I'm going to enumerate to you. So first, let me say something about Japan. Japan is, everybody know, archipelago. It's wholly surrounded by the seas. Nearest land is China or Korea, which is thousands of kilometers away. So in Japan, people say because they are surrounded by seas, there is a special word called Shimaguni Konjo. That means people have a little confined way of thinking. They normally don't believe the foreigners all of a sudden. That type of thing also, now it is, Japan is a fully international country, but because they were separated by the seas, so they normally had a little confined way of thinking in the before old times, but I don't think so now. And Japan's history is very old. It's somewhere I have read there are 3 countries in the world which are very oldest country in the world: Japan, China, and one country in Europe, San Marino. Maybe these 3 countries are the oldest country. Nepal is number 17th and the oldest country in the world. And when I saw some information, what I found, people began to live in Japan almost 30,000 years ago. That's called the Paleolithic age. And when I tried to get some rough ideas about Japan, there had been 16 periods of Japanese rules so far up to now. These are called, I don't want to detail, just I think for the sake of interest for the audience, I just say, from the Paleolithic age, they were in a descending order, then Joban period, Yayoi period, Kofun period, then come the Asuka period, Nara period, Heian period, Kamakura period, Muromachi period, Azuchi Monoyama period, Edo period, Meiji period, Taisho period, Showa period, Heisei period, and Reiwa period. Now it is Reiwa period since last year, May 2019, when the incumbent emperor enthroned following the abdication of his father, Emperor Akihito. So in the Japanese history, we find that Edo period was a very important period in Japanese history. And just before I said there is some commonality between Nepal and Japan. That is, you see, Japanese imperial system existed since 2680 years ago. Japan was established on the 11th February 660 BC. So at that time, Emperor Jimmu was the first emperor who established Japan. Thereafter, it came. By now, there are 126 emperors, and the present emperor Naruhito is a 126th emperor. But the Japanese history also says that at times, strong shoguns mean the military generals, they usurped the power and they started their own periods. So one shogunate, they fight with another, and the one who is victorious, they impose the rule on another imposed. This way, there have been many upheavals or many wars, and finally, when the Tokugawa shogunate was toppled down in 1868, the real power came back to Meiji, Emperor Meiji in 1868. And also at that time, there was a Boshin War. The war also ended at that time. So this way, Japan has a very long history, like in our country also. There have been many dynasties during 2,000 years of history. Like they started from Gopal Vamsi, then Kirat, then Lichavi, then Malla, Newar, Sahaj dynasties. One after another, they coupled down, and then finally we had a republic now. So in our case also, from 1846 to 1950, when there were Saha kings, Rana families, they usurped the power and they ruled for 104 years. So this is one very remarkable commonality between Nepal and Japan, I found. And there are also many other things, which I'm not going to go in details. And in the Japanese history, Taisho Meiji restoration is the real reforming stage of rule of the emperor, because at that time, the country was in a new mood to open to the foreigners. In 1853, actually what happened, in 1853, a US fleet, naval fleet led by Commodore Matthew Perry, he arrived in Yokohama port, and he brought a big cannon and said to Japanese rulers at that time, if you don't open your country, then we will fire with cannons. So they threatened. And Japanese at that time were little, they don't have cannons, they have only swords. So they were afraid and they opened the country. Then slowly Japan became open to other countries also. Actually, that Tokugawa shogunate, the last shogunate, they adopted a policy called Sakoku. Sakoku means total isolation from foreigners. They kept the country within themselves, and the foreigners were not allowed to come. And so that way, they sealed the country from outside interference. So anyhow, the seminal good point is that in 1868, then the Emperor Meiji at the age of 15 years, he enthroned in the Japanese Japan, and then slowly things changed in the first. And one beautiful aspect that Japan, they knew that now they can remain isolated for long. So they started opening country. They adopted Western culture. They imported Western know-how, technology, goods, and they also sent a lot of people to study abroad in the West, France, UK, and many other countries. This way, Meiji Restoration took place, and it was a very good beginning for Japan to prosper. And also in 1879, they wrote a new constitution. It was entirely different from in shape, and slowly they begin to move forward. Then came at that time, every Japanese say with pride that Meiji Restoration was the point where Japan became a modern country. Otherwise, they were shielded by the shogunates. And thereafter, now let me speak a little bit about foreign policy at this moment, because before, of course, Japan had I found that in 607, Japan sent the ambassador to China, and the first Japanese ambassador went to Spain in 1613. So that was very isolated cases. It was not a real opening, because of some work they sent the ambassador at that time. But real foreign policy of Japan started from Meiji Restoration, and that was, they were always, all the time, Japan had a very strong military. Military rulers were very strong than political leaders. They used to say, Japan people used to say, our country should be protected by a strong army, strong military, and strong country. That was the basic principle they had. They held it for many, many centuries. So then after Meiji, then another emperor, Taisho, came. It was from 1912 to 1926. It was a short rule. Then another emperor, Emperor Hirohito, came, and he ruled from the longest time, 1926 to 1989. At that time, Japan participated in World War I, along with Germany and Italy. And, huh? Hello? Huh?
Sir, continue, Gornus.
Okay, sorry. Then Japan was defeated in the Second World War in 1945. It was total devastation. There follows a lot of social and economic problems with Japan. Allied forces led by McDougall or Arthur McDouglas, they ruled, they conquered Japan, but they controlled Japan for 7 years, 45 to 52. And the new constitution was rewritten. So these all things made a foundation for Japan to come up to today. So that's why I'm explaining all these things to you. And from the 1950s to 60s was Japan's greatest time in terms of economic progress. Japan, what they did, America and USA were arch enemies. America and Japan were arch enemies. They fought. The Japanese bombed on Pearl Harbor on 7th of December 1941. Then they were engulfed in the war. Then by that time, the time has changed, and America and Japan signed a peace pact, and they became, Japan came under the umbrella of American security umbrella. So what happened to Japan? They could save a lot of money for redeployment in the industrial development, economic development, and they spent less on defense because they were protected by America. So that was the point where Japan could develop very fast. And at that time, Prime Minister Shigeru Yoshida, he was the one who enunciated new foreign policy for Japan, who said, first and foremost priority of Japan is to attach with America for all security and economic reasons. Then not to spend on defense too much, and some amounts to be spent for economic cooperation to developing countries through bilateral and via United Nations. These were the pillars of Shigeru Yoshida doctrine, they said, and that made Japan very accessible to financial resources. Japanese people have a lot of domestic savings, and they posted a postal savings program also, and that created a huge mobilization of resources for refinancing, redeployment in the industrial and economic development sector. That is the main thing which Japan achieved almost 10% economic growth every year for a consecutive years. And then came at that time, industrial productions were in very fast developing, like chemicals, like vehicles, electronics, textiles, all type of these secondary industries were developing in Japan, and Japanese became rich day by day. And then the government realized, now we have money, and of course, yeah, first they took the loan from Marshall Plan, but they repaid it in 3 years, thinking that foreign money cannot develop our country. We have to make our own money. We have to develop by our own money. So that was a very nostalgic feeling of the Japanese people, and what they thought it was good, and that also brought Japan to the forefront of economic development. So what happened? Then Japanese began to think, government began to think, now we have money, we must share with the other countries, and we must cooperate with other countries. The international peace and stability is very much important for us to survive also. We cannot remain isolated like this. So they began the ODA, Official Development Assistance. The first country to receive ODA was India. It was on 9th of October 1954. And slowly, as Ms. Yumiko has said, Japan Nepal cooperation started with ODA in 1969. But by now, almost there are no country left where Japanese ODA has not reached for several regions. So this is the history. Now I want to say, what is the basic tenets of, what is the basic platform of Japanese foreign policy? Actually, Japan is a resource-poor country. They developed their country by importing raw materials, made them with innovation and technological development, and technology is the one thing which made Japan very prosperous. They invested a lot of money in R&D, research and development also. And this way, Japan has been realized that Japan must cooperate with other countries also to survive for itself. So this is the origin of ODA theory. And by 1991, Japan was the second biggest donor country. It held the position up to 2000. Then some Nordic country has taken over it. And Japanese economy also did slow down in 1990s. With they faced a lot of economic problems, and all the time, Japanese foreign policy has been something like they have always maintained close relations with America. They know without American help, it will be difficult. Thousands of Japanese forces are stationed in Okinawa, and the Japanese government pays them some money for maintenance of American forces. They have very close relations, and also now they have their sphere of activity has influence. They have common, there is called acronym called Quad, where America, Japan, Australia, and India are involved. So this way, Japanese and American, along with others, cooperation in military and defense matters are increasing every time, every day. That is the, they say, this is because of now changing dynamics of security concerns in the world at large, and also in the South Asian seas. And also, of course, they say rise of China is a potential threat to them as they consider. And there have been a lot of activities going on among these countries. Now, what are the important things Japan attaches under its foreign policy? They, of course, they say the planks are like this: protection of national sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is also in our case also. And they also never forget adoption of values and good things from those foreign countries where they were also enemies. And economic relations with Japan and USA, that is also a very strong plank. And they are also always mindful of North Korean missile threats and missile issues, and relations with China and Japan, because they in the past they have very very unpleasant historical relations also. And time and again, each time when I was in also Japan, there was a big issue when there was a new Japanese Prime Minister. When he goes to Yasukuni Shrine, Korea and China used to get offended because there the war heroes were enshrined. So Japan is also trying to improve relations with China at all levels. And also Japan's another important aspect of foreign policy is relations with Southeast Asian policy, because during the Second World War, Japanese forces fought in many countries like Myanmar, Malaysia, Indonesia, and some Brunei and other countries. So they don't want to leave anything in the heart. They want to clear it. So they are trying their best to erase any unpleasant happenings of the past. So they are also paying some compensation to the suffering people. So 70s Japan's relationship and Europe, they attach a lot of importance to Europe, of course. Japanese beforehand they used to consider themselves equivalent to European people also, but now they are also realize that Asia, there is good wisdom in Asia also. Now they want to maintain. Japan is a very friendly country because of their constitution of 1947. Japan has become a, they say, pacifist constitution. So that means they will never go to war. They will renounce the war and they will never resort to war. That was the gist of that constitution. And they always promise to work for the peace and international security. But when I said Japan's pacifist constitution, I must mention to you here that around 1990, there was some amendment in the Japanese constitution. It was Article 9, I think, which renounced the war. Now they have changed that Japanese self-defense forces, they can be sent abroad on special circumstances, but not for any military or defense activities, only for humanitarian activities to help the countries which have catastrophes like famines, like floods, like earthquakes. So if the government of Japan, they want to send their self-defense forces, they can send, but not for any military activities. I remember, in 1991, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, Japanese government provided $13 billion as a cooperation. But at that time, one American leader said, no, you don't just give us money, send your people also. Then at that time, Japan said, no, we cannot send any people, our self-defense forces, personnel for fighting any other country because of our constitution. So they adhered to their pacifist constitution and defended their position. So, and what are the basic objectives of Japan's foreign policy? Let me explain to you shortly. Japan, as I said, Japan really need a very good international environment for not only for other countries, but at the global level at a whole, because Japan manufactures so many goods with innovative skills and they have to export. They have to trade, they have to do business, they import, export business. So they must make this international environment very, very clean and very peaceful as much as possible. I mean, they cannot make everywhere the peace, but they will contribute in the available ways to make the peace. And they also, second point is, they want to normalize with all the countries with whom they have problems in the past. That is second point. And they want to be a part of international, political, economic, and other activities. And they want to play an active diplomacy with a full responsibility International Committee of Nations. And they want to make a very justifiable whole economy based on judicious distribution of resources And also another important point is that Japan wants to ensure the safe passage, safe supply of the energy, that is the petrol. So Japan has no petrol of its own. All they use it, they have to import. So for energy sector is also very, very important for them. And also they always want to promote dialogue between North and South. It means North means developed countries and South means developing countries. So they also want to play a role in these activities. And these are the basic objectives of Japan's foreign policy, which are still continuing. And now I want to tell you how Japan is using its diplomacy or foreign affairs. There is a slight changes are coming here. Comparatively before, it's a lot of changes. But even with the passage of time, there are some changes. Now you see Japan is a fully recognized country in the International Committee of Nations. And there are almost 190 to 200 embassies in Japan. Also, similarly, Japanese diplomatic missions abroad, embassies, consul generals, consulates, number around 200. And they have joined United Nations back in 1956, and almost all the member of specialized agencies. And also they are member of all Bretton Woods institutions like World Bank, International Finance Corporation, MIGA, etc. And also they are a major financier of the Asian Development Bank. And I want to tell you that all the time, a Japanese national heads as president of the Asian Development Bank. And Japan always donates economic and technical cooperation to many countries in various ways, through the UN specialized agencies, through UNGOs, INGOs, to achieve a permanent goal, how to make our world safer and stable. Now I want to say that what Japan should do, in my personal opinion, Japan is a third world economic power country now. Only its second position is taken by China a few years ago. I think still Japanese contribution around many places are enormous. They provide enormous volume of money. But what I feel, Japan must play a very active role in the international affairs, in the international diplomacy. Like around 2015, Japan hosted an international conference in Afghanistan when they are in trouble. So this type of activity really promotes Japanese foreign policy. And also I want to say that many Japanese nationals have headed many specialized agencies of the United Nations, like WHO, IAEA, and UNESCO, and many others. But Japan has never produced a candidate to become a Secretary General of the United Nations. And second, I recognize Japan has an ambition to become a member of the Security Council, permanent member of the Security Council. That is a long-term goal, and Japan, I think, must get this post, of course, in the due course of time, because Japan is a very important country for all the countries of the world, both from not only from economic cooperation, technical cooperation, but Japanese they can contribute a lot because they are a very non-controversial country. In case of Nepal also, whatever Japan provides as ODA, loan, grants, or whatever it is, they never attach any strings, and they are always attached strings free. And that is the beauty of Japanese loan. They never demand anything. Maximum demand they make is that support for their candidate at some elections in the United Nations. You know, that is the only thing there. And what I want to say now in the last part of my presentation, before, during 1980s, you know, at that time when I was in Japan as a student, in the embassy, there used to be word said by the foreign diplomats. Japan bashing is an international sport. You mean to bash the Japan, because at that time Japanese yen was very strong. It went down up to 79 yen per dollar, and people had a lot of time. And UN cry in Tokyo, a lot of countries sold their lands to meet their budget deficits. Even some countries closed their embassies and they fled like that. You know, at that time, because of Japan's strong economy, people are afraid to visit Japan at that time. And despite their enormous economic cooperation, still countries, few countries, very powerful countries, they used to resort to many Japan bashing, you know. And it's not very good to say now because time has changed. Before, people used to say Japanese diplomats do 3 things, 3 years at the meeting: sleeping, silent, and smiling. And they should change this, you know. They should speak now. They should actively speak. What they want to say, they must say. So when you express, then you understand. When you don't express, you don't understand. Nobody understands. So international meetings, Japan must play a very active role. Just giving money in the international arena, it doesn't make very good, because people will be happy to get the money, but they also want some other sort of Japanese assistance, their know-how, their technology, their ideas, because Japan is a very ancient country with rich wisdom. So these things, you know, they can, as a part of cultural activities, they can share with the world, people at the world. Then it will be very good for Japan also and the rest of the world, that Japan and rest of the world are united in a one or another form, and the culture bound by the cultural affinities like this. In Nepal also, we hope the same thing, you know. Now I think just before I saw some newspapers and said that now Japan has also some problem like Nepal in the past, changing of the government very frequently. At that one time, I remember during how many years, there were so many dozens of governments changing every 6 months, 9 months. But now changed, and now the incumbent prime minister, on the former foreign minister Shintaro Abe, from whom I got a certificate from the foreign ministry, that he is ruling the country since, I mean, he's the prime minister in the country since 2012. Earlier also he was the prime minister. And people seem to have some sort of confidence that now Japan has stable political stability in the political field. That means that Japan can pursue a very good foreign policy, because now international arena, a lot of problems are cropping up here. Not only this pandemic, which cropped just a few months back, there are many serious security threats, even to Japan, because it's surrounded by 3 nuclear powers: Russia, China, and North Korea. And also, as I said, one of the main objectives of Japan foreign policy, how to deter North Korean missile crisis. These they are using the missile time and again, but this really is a threat. You know, threat is a threat. We cannot take easily. So with a strong prime minister at the helm, I think Japan has good days to go ahead in coming days, and it shows that when we have a strong leader in the country with a vision, with the ability, with the skill, with the tact, then the country's prosperity comes automatically. That is a lesson we must get from Japan also. Now, since last 8 years, we have never heard that the longest serving prime minister was Junichiro Koizumi for 5-6 years, but now Abe-san has beaten him. So I wish all the best for him. And one thing I forgot to tell you, in 1964, Japan hosted Tokyo Olympics and also introduced Shinkansen, the high-speed train. Those were the years which catapulted Japan from a resource-poor economic country to a very highly developed country, making it the second biggest economy for several years until the time China has taken over a few years back. So this is a summary of my presentation. Maybe I might have missed some points, but if there is any questions to ask about my presentation or other aspects of Japan, whatever I know, I will be very willing to share with the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shrestha. Here we come to the end of all the presentation. I would like to request all our participants to drop the question in the chat box. We have received around 10 questions, so let me start with that. The first question is for Ambassador. How Japan perceives regarding Nepal's recent tilting of relation with China, and how is it going to affect Japan-Nepal relations as well as Nepal-India relations? So that is the first question for Ambassador Kojima. The second question is for Dr. Balram Shrestha. The question is, I would like to know Nepal's strategic engagement with Japan, especially military relations. In recent times, Nepal has experienced some tense moment with India. Is there any need for Nepal to substantially improve its military power? So this is for Balram Shrestha. The third question is not assigned to anyone. So I'll read the third question and then I can take other questions in the second round. Third is, Japan is technologically most advanced. How is Japan helping Nepal in developing human resources? What are the opportunities for Nepalese students to study in Japan? Maybe one more last question. In recent times, China has emerged as a major development partner of Nepal. Do you think it is time for Japan to enhance and increase its economic assistance to Nepal? So we'll follow the same order. First, we'll ask Ambassador Kojima to respond, and then we'll follow the same order. So Ambassador Kojima.
Thank you very much. First of all, I was very amazed about the knowledge of Ambassador Mohan Shrestha about Japan. The old history to the present, current history, current situation, and so on and so forth, from local life to diplomacy and security and so on and so forth. I was very amazed, and I would like to congratulate Mohan Shrestha for that deep knowledge and deep and wide knowledge about it. Now, I think the Japan-China relations, we have been a very long history. And also, we adopt a lot of things from China. The culture, not only culture, social practices, and so on and so forth. And also, they are, importing back our culture into the Chinese character, simplified characters, and so on and so forth. So these exchanges over time will not change. We like to maintain that the close relationship from the old time and so on, and the cultural the similarities and so on and so forth, and we respect their history too. And also regionally, geographically, China is a neighbor just across the China Sea. So that we like to keep the basic the friendship between Japan and China. But there are, Ambassador Mohan Shrestha touched on, there were some unpleasant situation before World War II, but I think that has been healing, but still there's some, psychological, maybe intellectual, the resistance may exist for both sides, Japan and against China, and China against Japan. And that is normal because we are neighbors and long relations. Therefore, we cannot be together. The different country, historical and geographical. But and having said that, at the moment, we are a little bit worried about the very fast military buildup and their military activities in South China, South and East China Sea. How to solve this issue? It's very difficult because, you know, the one thing, the political and economic system is different. They adopt socialism market economy, and we adopt free market economy and democracy. So that kind of differences, it is very difficult to overcome. But those are given things, given factors, and given that factors, we have to maintain the peace and stability for the benefit of both countries, each country. But the United States is very worried about the military activities in the South China Sea and so on and so forth. And we are too. Our hope is that China would realize that the neighboring countries are becoming a little bit uneasy about their practices and activities in military field and so on. And one more thing I have to touch in the security area is North Korea. It's unpredictable. What they do next, we cannot predict. But I personally support President Trump's initiative to make peace with North Korea and try to eliminate nuclear weapons from North Korea. And that is our very important task in the years ahead. And also important thing is China-Nepal relations. China is a neighbor country of Nepal across the Himalayas. So I think that there have been the historical relations and the influences from over the mountains, Himalaya mountains, and so on and so forth. And recently, in part because of the China's recent strategy, One Belt, One Road, the strategy, they are trying to have much more closer relation with Nepal. Looking at the activities in India as well. But I think here, Nepal's role is very important. Bridging differences between India and China, differences between Japan and China. The Nepal can do something because Nepal is in a very strategic, geostrategic position in between two big countries, India and China. Historically, it has very strong relations and ties, maybe influence too, good or bad. So that kind of thing, I think Nepal should bear in mind. And in the years ahead, Japan-Nepal bilateral relations, of course, there is a necessity for economic and technical assistance from us to Nepal in such fields as the infrastructure, health, education, and so on and so forth. But, you know, as I said, we are entering a new phase. And under new phase, I think we should seek a closer partnership at reasonable level, shifting from the donor-recipient relationship. And Mr. Shrestha also pointed out the importance of business relations and economic and the business, relations between Nepal and Japan. And I think we welcome. And but we like to hear what kind of industries you want to develop. As I suggest, agriculture is one thing, IT and so on and so forth is another thing. But anyway, in the new century, well, the present century, 21st century, our relation will be closer and closer. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shrestha, would you like to respond? Dr. Shrestha, Balram Shrestha.
I don't see his image.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for, thank you, Dr. Jaiswal. And I have one question that here some Subhasu Kumar Khanta have a question to me. I would like to know Nepal's strategic engagement with Japan, especially military relations. In recent time, Nepal has experienced some tense moment with its India. Is there any need for Nepal to subsequently improve its military power? Till now, in my study, there is no any military cooperation with Nepal and Japan. Till now, there is no any such kind of the fact in my research. But normally, every country has their own military powers and one military system. From now, Nepal and Japan also maybe it's good to think to uplift their this kind of the technical support with each other, because Nepal also need to improve and make efficiency of their military power, because most of the Nepalese military is now supporting to the world peace, and also the Nepali Gurkhas are go for the world peace through the UN, and that is a peace called the peace troops also, and those troops who are working on the world peace and the peace movement, of course they are also can able to protect their country through the security process, and need to get the new such kind of security know-how and technology from the developed country. And now every country have their own problem with neighbors, and not only Nepal but also Japan and America and also Brazil and UK, and all the countries have their own problem with neighbors, but need to settle down through the diplomatic strategy, not from this kind of the military powers, but need to settle down through the peace dialogue and the diplomatic relations, because we are all promoting the world peace, not for the war. That's why we need to uplift our military forces for the development and technical perspective, not for the war in fight. That's why from on now, Nepal and Japan also need to exchange their militaries in the perspective of the technical and the new innovation perspective. Thank you.
Madam Asakuma, would you like to respond on any questions? There is no direct question to you, but if you want. Okay. Mohan sir.
Okay, thank you, Pramodji. I would like to, I remember one question about the students and what they can learn in Japan. I think I can deal with this question. Okay, reply is that in 1902, a batch of 8 Nepali students were sent by then government to study in Japan at a government scholarship. And they left for Japan via Calcutta and Bombay ports to Japan in the steamer on 25th of April. And after 3 years of study, they came back on 19th of June 2005. What they studied was about agriculture, mining, and some ammunitions. And also, as Madam Asakuma has said, when they came back, they brought persimmon, and which is very delicious, Japanese persimmon, very delicious, and wisteria, and some other plants which are still blooming in several parts of our country. So after that, there seems to be no exchange of students or nothing happened. Only in 1937, one literary figure, one Prithvi Bahadur Singh, very long name, he seems to have gone to Japan. After that, nobody has gone, neither has come. As said by the first contact between Nepal and Japan started in 1896 by visit by monk Ekai Kawaguchi. So we consider this was a seminal visit by the monk, which ushered our relation into action. So on 1st September 1956, we established diplomatic relations, and our embassies were established respectively in 1965 and 67. So now what I want to say that a lot of students have been going to Japan until last year, about 9,000 or more. But now because of COVID and other problems, the going of students has stopped. Actually, Japan is such a fabulous country, wonderful country to learn a lot. Not only culture, not only educational disciplines, but many things. For a human life, it is very necessary. Like the value of promises, reaching on time, keeping and introduction. These all social values has a great meaning in our human life. Our students now, as Ambassador Kojima has said, almost 100,000 people are there in the form of workers, married to Japanese, students, and many other fields. But I think students, now it is stopped. The problem has cropped up from our students also, as so far to my knowledge. What is the genesis of the problem? I heard, I don't have any confirmed report, but I heard that Japanese immigration has lately found that many of the papers to be submitted, which need to be submitted from Japanese and Nepali side, are made in a very not acceptable form. In some cases, fake papers. So Japan has stopped issuing the visa to the students. So mischief by some people has really caused a lot to so many people, so many students in our country. This is very unpleasant. I think they need a refinement in this policy. Actually, Japan provides a scholarship also by the government level. Private universities also, they provide a scholarship to Nepalese students. So because of problems by some miscreants, some problems have cropped up because they don't believe on the papers submitted by Nepalese students, not by all. I don't want to say all, but few people. So this is very unpleasant part, and we have to correct it. Only genuine students who are qualified to study in Japan, they will be welcomed by the Japanese government and public all the time because Japanese people consider Nepalese people very humble, very nice. And even when I was in embassy, there used to be many calls saying that don't develop Nepal like Japan because Nepal is our second home. We find old Japan in Nepal. This type of public sentiment is galore in minds of the Japanese people. They are very humble people, very honest people, as I said in my presentation. I remember one very bad incident, whether it is good to mention here or not, but if some students are listening, it will be good also, because bad experience is good teacher, people say. That one Japanese professor invited one Nepali student paying all the money, but he vanished from the airport, Narita airport. Then the professor was very sad and he called me. Then I called his Nepal house, his wife spoke, and I asked him, where is your husband? He said he went to Japan. He has never reached Japan, but he disappeared. So this is an isolated case, not many cases, but even such incidents bring a very bad reputation, So we as a country of 30 million people, we must be very careful about social activities, not to jeopardize the relation, not to give a bad impression. I think Japan will be always helpful to us. His government is helping, people are helping, NGOs are helping. Now, Madam Yumiko has said how many activities are there from the Japanese side. When I wrote an article, it's almost within 51 years, from 1969 to 2019, I think 50 years, almost 500 billion rupees have been provided as a loan, grants, and to Nepal. Where we will find such a magnificent country? So I ask all listeners and our student guys that please do things honestly. Japan's gate is always welcome to honest people, judicious people, those who want to study in Japan, and they will be always helping us. It's a great country to learn many things which are vital components in our life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, let me just put like 5 questions because we are running out of time. So I'm just taking 5 last questions. First is, Japan is part of Indo-Pacific. Is there any defense cooperation or cooperation security in Nepal and Japan? I think it was already answered by Mr. Shrestha that there is no military tie between the two countries, but maybe if there is, please explain. Second is, Japan has both capital and technology. Nepal is rich in water resources. Why is Japan not utilizing this opportunity when Chinese and Indian investment is politicized in Nepal? Because electricity produced by Japan will be consumed by India, as India and Japan enjoys very good relations. So why Japan is not investing in our sector, hydropower sector? Second is, could you please explain a little about the provisions of introducing and operating original Japanese businesses in Nepal? I mean the challenges and obligation of doing it. So maybe Dr. Shrestha can look at it. There's another question for Dr. Shrestha. You have been lawyer in Nepal and Japan. My question is, what are the legal hurdles in Nepal that discourage foreign investment in Nepal? Can you please suggest some recommendation to government of Nepal in terms of policy and legal reform to attract Japanese investment as well as other foreign investment? The last question is maybe Ambassador or JICA head can answer. Japan constructed BP Korela, which is of very good quality. It is the only road which takes care of topography and there is no chance of landslide. Environment is taken care of. It is constructed with huge investment and lots of time, long time. However, the width of the road also makes it more dangerous. My question is, who designed this road? Who is the one who designed just one lane road? Because adding just 1 or 2 feet extra would have made it very safe. So who is the one who designed this road, which is very dangerous? So these are the questions. Let me again start with, maybe we can go in reverse order. Let's start with Balram sir because he has 2 questions, and please be brief because we have to end the program in 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Pramodji. I'm working on this foreign investment for maybe 15, 17 years from Japan. for the FDI problem in Nepal, the main problem is the government policy. As I have the experience that in Japan, if some foreigner people who wants to invest in Japan, they need to invest 5 million Japanese yen, and they can get the business visa very clearly and very quickly. And there is no any kind of hurdles to registration their company and registration the taxes and any kind of the certificate they need to get from the government offices and municipalities and any places very easy. Doing business Japan is very easy because out of 190 countries, Japan is ranked 29 and very easy to business in Japan. But if we go to Nepal, very hard to do business because first of all, the registration of the company, the rules is very hard. As a foreigner, if someone go to Nepal, there is no good response from the bureaucrats. And all the government is not very supportive and very hard to register in the tax office and very hard to get approval from the bank, Nepal Rashtra Bank. It took maybe 2 months or more than 2 months. That's why every Nepal's authority is said that very easy to invest and registration company is very hard. And from this latest government, they have had make one rule that those foreigner who wants to invest in Nepal, at least they need to invest 50 million Nepali yen. That's very high amount. Even in Japan is a very super economic power country, and also the America. Even if we go to the US, we only invest 10 million, 10 million rupees, and then we can get the investment visa. And in Japan, only the 5 million Japanese yen. That's why in Nepal is what to say, that they make the very odd, very not normal rule. That's why that is very hard to invest in Nepal. And after registration company, it's very hard to continue the company in Nepal because of the government authorities hurdles and no such kind of infrastructure and no such kind of the supporting any kind of rules and authority from Nepal side to the foreign companies. That's why very hard to invest in Nepal and very hard to go to Nepal and very hard to follow the rule from the beginners. That is the main hurdles to invest in Nepal. That's why the Nepal is not getting the FDI. Most of the government side and the private side is need to make them very smooth rules, because when I compare with the developed country and the developing country in the context of FDI, in developed country, the country facilitate the investor, country facilitate the company. But in our Nepal and in developing country control the investor. Country want to control the companies. And that is not the prosperous to the companies and the expansion of the investing money. That's why Nepal should also need to facilitate, not control, need to advertise from the embassies, need to support to the foreign investor from the embassies and the consulate, not to control and not to make the authority to go inside the foreign investment companies as a shareholder. Most of the Nepalese bureaucrats is not facilitating to the foreign companies because they just want to control. That makes our Nepal not expanding the FDI. This is the main reason. And other reason is Nepal should also make very liberal and facilitated rules towards the Nepalese company and also the foreign companies. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Maybe Excellency, would you like to add something? Ambassador.
Well, about investment, it is our hope that the investment to come to Nepal from Japan, from other countries in the world. But first, two things I like to point out. First, you know, where the investment comes and the profitable industries. So we are waiting. What kind of industry would be profitable? We are very eager to hear from Nepal. That's one thing. If companies cannot make a profit, then nobody will invest. And I'm suggesting, for example, agribusiness that accommodates a variety of industries, equipment production, the packing, and so on and so forth. Another thing is, during my tenure, there was two tax-free zone in Tarai. But unfortunately, I was very, very, interested in that. And I was watching very closely whether it is going to be successful or not. But finally, I found that many companies left the site. Free trade zone. Because of the management and labor relations, another factor. And labor side cannot tolerate the policies of management. The management cannot tolerate such a attitude by labor. So many companies decided to leave. And so the investment is very important, and I like to study further. As I mentioned, Nepal should create more income-generating jobs and businesses. And so in that, I think you have to invite direct investment outside Nepal. But what are the profitable businesses there? And what would be the management labor relations, whether they collaborate, cooperate each other to make profit, and so on and so forth. So I think there's a very, very much potential in Nepal, although the market is not so big. So that I'm suggesting that medium and small and medium-sized industries would be a good target to seek. But anyway, let's hope that Nepal should invite more investment and to create more income-generating jobs there. So that's my wish. Thank you very much.
About the investment, right?
Yes, if you any question.
As Dr. Shrestha said, that the minimum investment is 50 million. as too huge. And I would like to say that the many Japanese companies are very disappointed the result of this the decision of this situation, unfortunately, because of the in Japan, our company is not only the excellent company, not only the big company. We have very, many excellent small or medium-sized enterprises, and they would like to come to Nepal, but the hard, the bar to the minimum investment is up 10 times, and then they are very hesitant they are very disappointed. So this kind of the government decision is will be modified, and I'm also consider that the government is now they consider investment the big size scale investment only, but for the income generation or for improvement generation, small or medium-sized enterprise is also the big role. So this kind of policy, industrial policy, also should be exist in Nepal. It is my comment. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mohan sir, would you like to say anything?
Okay, thank you, Pramodji, and the man who asked this question. I want to say something very important thing, actually. Each country wants to have FDI for indirect investment or investment in economic development process. Similarly, economic diplomacy, foreign investment is in number 3. And our government always wants FDI at all the times since the policy was adopted in 1996. We have made several policies which are required. When I study the policies, those are very excellent policies. Where is the problem? Problem lies in its implementation. You see, in 2017, there was an investment summit in Kathmandu where I also attended. A lady from Bangladesh who represented the international organization said in front of all the distinguished delegates that Nepal has a good policy, but we have to cross about 39 rules and regulations for FDI project. It takes long time. Government officials are not that cooperative. They ask very funny questions. And she also said in a country like Cambodia, a permission is given to FDI project within 24 hours. When Cambodia can give the FDI project in 24 hours, why we need so long time? So this is a very fundamental question. But I personally feel that there is no dearth of FDI capitals around the world. People have a lot of money in the pockets to invest in the profitable ventures around the world. Only thing is that how to tap these FDI in a proper way. That is the only problem. And we lack a lot of things in this respect. Number one, I have said, there are good policies, but when it comes to implemented side, a lot of problems has to be faced. Actually, investors should be welcome with a red carpet, but it's not like that. When I was in the foreign ministry, I remember one day, one American diplomat came to see me, and we chatted in a very congenial atmosphere, and explained to him we have a very good policy, one window policy for the FDI. And he said, yeah, you have one window policy, but to go from that window, you have to pass through 11 gates. I remember that words, very much. He was just ridiculing that. How funny are our rules, And our people don't know the importance of FDI, even though they are working in the same office. This is a fundamental problem. Maybe slowly. And regarding Japanese investment also, I saw twice in Japan, studied, I had known of people. Japanese have fear that Nepal is a high-risk country, they say frankly, because our policy, first thing is there is no policy, there is no rules, and if there are rules, they are not implemented. That is the main fundamental problems. If we can solve these problems, It's not a big problem also. It can be changed by 1-2 very strict bureaucrats. A lot of FDI will come to our country. People are just looking for a country to invest, and we have a very good environment for FDI in this country. We have good rules also as what are the things needed for the FDI. It's a guarantee against the nationalization, 100% repatriation of the capital and profit, a good labor system, utilities system, tax haven.
Okay, thank you, sir. Distinguished panelists, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, here we come to the end of the program. I would like to thank all our excellent panelists for wonderful presentation. It was really enriched discussion, and hope our participants who are in Zoom room and around 270 people who are on Facebook benefited from the discussion. I, on behalf of CDD Alliance, would like to thank Mr. Mitsuaki Kojima and Ms. Miki Asukoma, Dr. Balram Shrestha, and Mr. Mohan Krishna for their valuable time and deliberation. I'd also like to thank our chair for today, Mr. Mitra Bandhu Paudel, and our wonderful audience for our participation and provoking questions.